are asking me. Okay, that recording started, yeah? Okay, sorry. Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. And it's lovely to be back. Seeing Orla and Carrie's face takes me right back to the origins of where it all began. And yeah, so thank you so much. Um, my name's Trisha. I set up Sligo Woodland School way back in the day, or maybe back in 2016. I started as a nature-based program where it was permission to open the doors, and I'd knock all the preschool doors in Sligo, and I'd say permission to open the door. We take the kids out, and we just start some nature-based activities, play, learning, and then from there I found a site and set up woodland camps and parent and toddler groups. Whenever school stopped, they became family sessions. We ran more camps. And then in 2017, I opened, ran the ECCE program. So I set up as a registered childminder, providing the early years program, and I ran that for 4 years up in the woods and in my polytunnel, and it was fantastic. Uh, and it was a lot, but a lot of preschools were knocking my door saying, "Can we come up and see your space?" But I was so busy. So after 4 years, I then stepped back from the preschool, and I'm now involved in the more. Oh, hello! I can see some faces. Is that Lucy? Hello. Um, so now I'm running sessions for county childcare committees in different counties. I run camps, I run family sessions, I run sessions for leader, ETB, and family family resource centres. So I'm working with children from naught to people to 190. So all different ages and stages, and but with a focus always in the early years with through the county childcare committees, because it's a love and it's a passion, and the gift of the outdoors is for everyone. But think especially it's the natural habitat of kids, and to get them indoors, sitting down and static. I think we just need to kind of rewind a bit, open doors, let them out and let them explore, find their place in space. So I would like to put up a PowerPoint presentation if that's all right. I'm going to hit share. If I don't get this right, will somebody tell me? Let me see.
That's perfect. Yeah. Well done, Trisha. Yeah.
Hey, the technology worked. My 19-year-old friend was right. He said, just press two buttons, or was it three? That's where I could go wrong. So,
And
yes.
sorry,
So,
just before you start there, just to let everyone know, I'm sure there'll be lots of questions and comments coming up. So maybe we'll wait to the end to ask Trisha questions. We'll have half an hour at the end for that. Or you can also put them in chat and then we'll come to them at the end as well. Yeah. So thanks, Trisha.
perfect.
Off you go.
Thank you. Don't forget my time check because I'm terrible at the time. Thanks. Okay, so yes, so in Sligo Woodland School, it was a preschool for 4 years. Absolute passion project. Loved it. Found my people in that space, and the families that came with them, and the wider community that connected in. So the space was small. It's now huge, and it's wonderful. And the photographs here are actually some of my own kids and their friends, that would come and stay and play. Um, Favorite place is the hammock for all ages and stages, and it is whatever you want it to be. Little girl there gets a rowing boat and just lying back and having your sit spot on your swing. So I believe that like playing in nature is a child's birthright. So going static and sitting indoors is not going to work for me. So open the door, let them out and explore and play and use their imagination in their own way. Um, and I find that every time I'm talking about the outdoors and young people, I always come back to the human scale. Here we are right now. We're either sitting like in the kitchen or on a sofa or on a bed, and everything's scaled to the human size. If you look up, there's usually a roof up beside you, a door, a window at either side of you. So you're finding a space that's confined to the human scale, and that's great. That makes you feel safe and warm. But when you're outdoors and you get to explore, the human scale's removed. And I think there's something really liberating in that, especially for a young child who can be run and that's okay, who can shout and jump and that's okay. So they're not being told to sit down, be quiet, be still. You've got this space where you run, you fall, you get up, because you're running with playful purpose. There's something in mind that you want to do in that space, and the allowance for exuberance, exploration, it's all there. And the human scale, you can look up and go as far as your eyes can see. You can look into the horizon as far as you can go in the space that allows. So the human scale is removed. And I think that's lovely for young people. So size doesn't matter. And the social proximity, in those early years when we're apparently learning self-regulation. And I do think that kids are better at self-regulation and listening than a lot of adults are. So I think we should be watching and learning from them. But that social proximity, so there's nothing like when you get frustrated or annoyed or upset or just have that need to get away from something that's upsetting you. And for young kids, it's usually sometimes other young kids. So the social proximity that the outdoor space offers is second to none. And I'll find that when I set the boundaries, or the kids then set the boundaries up in the woods, they've got all that space to go and explore. When you're invited into that space, it's a real privilege, and into their play space, into their social space, into that connection with what they're doing, and that ask to come into play. So the social proximity, the human scale, I see it play out every day. And I always feel like I'm doing something right whenever I'm stepping back and being quiet, or when they go and explore. So I'm going to talk about lots of activities that we can do with kids, young kids in the early years, be that 0 to 3, be that 3 to 6, be that 6 to 12. And that's all wonderful, but it's their space to do with as they wish, and you're allowed to come into it. And that's the privilege. So we'll get down to all the different ideas, and keeping that space playful and safe, keeping it challenging and with risk, but without the hazards, and for ourselves as adults, and stepping out of our comfort zone and letting them step into theirs. So the beauty of the outdoor space for the young people of actually all ages and stages is how stimulating the canvas is of nature. It's ever changing, it's alive and living, and you feel that when you're outdoors. You can feel very connected with your feet on the ground, how grounded you are, the smell and the movement all around you, lying back and being still and having all those magical moments that are much more reduced, I feel. I love indoors, I love my sofa, but you don't find that space and that calming effect and that challenging feeling that you get when you're outdoors. So for the calming, for the social proximity, for the challenge that comes when you remove that human scale, like how high can you climb, how far can you run? And by doing so, there is a learnt helplessness. And I'm not into scaremongering, and I'm not a worst case scenario, but I do see it, and I'm a mum, so I do it myself, that learnt helplessness. Now, I'll tie your laces, because we all need to move a bit. Like, mum's speed's different than any other speed that we have, so we're always trying to hurry and rush. But with that becomes the learnt helplessness. So I find in the outdoor classroom, we can step back from time a little bit, and they step forward in their own autonomy and their voice. You can, for as loud as you can scream, you really find your voice in the woods. It's wonderful. We're not trying to reduce that voice of the child. We're trying to make them as part of that space as the adult is, and finding that kind of balance. And I find very early on, working in the early years with kids, is there's a good dose of curiosity and a good dose of safety. So they'll be really curious and really interested, but no child really wants to get hurt. So I think there's that balance between their playfulness and their exuberance, and their challenging the environment around them. But like, if I don't see them, that instinct to stay safe, well, there's something, that's a conversation that is all about learning or exploring what's there. So I think that when we allow them to go out, the learned helplessness goes out the door as well. It's brilliant. They feel, when I started doing my outdoor preschool, I would write maybe about 4 risk assessments a day, because I was being funded through TUSLA. So I would have one for TUSLA, which was the insurance and the safety items and all that you needed to have, and what color where's your underwear that day? It was crazy. And then you'd have one for the weather, and then you'd have one for your activity, and then you'd have one for your site. So there I was for the first term, ticking all the boxes. And then in the second term, I was like, wait a minute, these kids. So and I handed the risk assessments over to the young people, and that became their job. They would do the risk assessments. And it was so funny, but doing the risk assessments, and every few seconds they go, and they'd start sighing because they'd learnt that from me. So I suppose I'm putting, our safety into their hands because they're the competent and capable learners, and we learn every day more from them, and they observe us more than we from them. So the learnt helplessness, it's null and void, because when you put the risk assessment in their hand and they're assessing, they're setting their own boundaries, they're setting their own safety calls, they are progressing into a more competent role as not just a learner, but as a teacher themselves to the children in the space around them. It's wonderful. And the creative space, like they say, the research shows that a stick is still the #1 plaything for young kids in the world over. Outdoor play is a universal activity. And it goes on in some countries much longer than us. Their outdoor space is much more available, much more their insurance, their legislation all allows for that part of their education not to stop when they go to school. Unfortunately, with our legislation and regulations, we haven't quite caught up. Though I'll talk about the new early years paper out now, The Sky is the Roof. But it's a lovely creative solution. It should be the answer for everybody, but we can't put everybody into the same round peg and square hole. So we offer a creative solution for kids to explore themselves, each other, and the space around them in the early years through Forest School. Oh, I pressed a button, it didn't work. Okay, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm just trying to get on to the next.
Click even with your cursor, Trisha, it sometimes works, or use a little right arrow. Oh, there you go.
It worked too well. There we go. So this is Sligo Woodland School, and these are all the different environments. There's nothing that encourages a child to build shelter bigger and better and quicker than snow. It's brilliant. That's a little tag there, and that was literally after about 10 minutes, he had the bones of a shelter. So the construction and deconstruction in the early years is just vitally important. We have in the woods, we've got the base camp, and then we have the ferry village, we have the pirate ship, we have the treasure island, and then we have the lost village. And these are all kind of like self-developed spaces by the kids. But in the lost village, that's where they do the shelter building. So there's a lot of building and then destruction. And it's wonderful to see a space that evolves and changes with different groups and different kids and different projects. So I love that about the outdoors, is that the scale of it is whatever they want it to be. And when they're building, they can then go in and choose and just take it all down again. It's very playful. They're experimenting with below, the beside, and the above. There's no limits to like how far they can dig. There might be a limit to my insurance as to 3 meters is how far they can climb. But and then and what they explore within that environment, it's all there. Bows and arrows, balancing, obstacle courses, even the joy of putting your own belongings and that of your peers into a wheelbarrow and taking it on a journey with you. You don't have to leave anything behind. And I think that's a lovely sense where kids are kind of monitored about what they can and can't bring. Well, I find if they're willing to carry it, they can bring it with them on their journey for the day. And the little polytunnel is the classroom. And it doesn't look as shiny as nice now. It's a bit more battered after the last couple of storms. But yeah, so the space is a shelter that we built for the kids. When I first set up preschool in the polytunnel, I didn't realize how warm it would get in the summertime, and you'd be sitting there and you'd just be melting. But so myself and the family and the kids got together and we built that little wooden shelter called the log cabin. It has aspirations, but it is a little cabin with very little. It's got sides and a roof, and it's actually got a growing roof now. One of the kids about 6 months ago started throwing turf and big cotton into the grass all around it and sticking it on the roof, and it worked. So we have this gorgeous living roof now on the shed. Sorry, log cabin. So yeah, so it's a very changing canvas, and it's a very movable feast. Wherever they want to play and develop and grow, they can, because that's the lovely space and the alliance of the outdoors for the early years. Oh, no, wrong way, Trish. Here we go. So I promise I will be talking about lots of ideas and projects to work with the kids, but I suppose I just felt it was important to say that um before I set up the preschool and worked with the really young kids, I wanted to make sure that what I was doing was grounded in some kind of principles that made sense to me, that I could draw from, and um, so some underlying principles and a foundation to kind of build ideas up and around. Because in the early years, we still have Astra, which is wonderful, and it just got that kind of like 10-year, well, yeah, 13 years later, it got new papers put into it and revised. It's really wonderful, and it talks about the active citizen in the new Astra paper, and the connection and the importance with the environment, which is wonderful. But there are two people that have influenced the early years outdoor work that I've done. And both of them I met with Orla. Orla, do you remember way back in 2016 or 15, we went over to Scotland, and it was the Nature Pedagogy, International Nature Pedagogy, and there was Claire Warden. So I'm going to give you lots of links and supporting documents for any kind of theoretical documents I'm going to share with you now, and also all the activities. I talk very fast and I mightn't describe very well, but I'm going to send you a lot of how-dos and loads of projects and ideas that you can decipher and take home with afterwards. But so I ground the early years practice with two theorists in mind, and name dropping again, Orla and I both met them. So there's Claire Warden, and she is a pioneer for outdoor early years education over in Scotland. She has Athlone preschool, which we went to have a look at, which is just like walking into your Mecca. It's just so beautiful. It's just where you find your heart, and every space that the kids and her have made together in the outdoors, it's really inspiring. Um, and when she talks about an education with children in the early years, she talks about the important three C's. So it's your climate, your culture, and your curriculum. And I find that vital in where and how I work up in the Woodland School in Sligo. You know, you just zip up, and I can see if a kid's humor or they're getting upset, I always check, how's your tummy? And then I check behind their neck just to make sure that they're warm and that their tummy's fed. So your tummy always talks, I think, when you're outdoors and you get especially hungry. So dress as the climate dictates, and the culture should always be based within the community. And I find the outdoor space is a wonderful space to share with the young children, with their parents, with their grandparents and their wider family. We had a lot of family days where they come and share in the space. And there we are with Gran and Grandpa making mud pies. So keep the culture, keep them rooted within the outdoor space. And then again, the curriculum, what are they learning and what's it relevant to them? Another 3 points that Claire Warden has made that I think is vital for any practitioner, be it indoors or outdoors with the early years, is the three spaces. That's the indoor classroom, the outdoor classroom, and the beyond. And nobody provides that any better, I think, than the Forest School in the early years. So your indoor would be, for me, it was my polytunnel. The outdoors was literally a couple of meters as you go out the doors on the outside of the polytunnel. And I would have had boundaries, orange rings around the trees, where myself and the kids would have walked around and marked them ourselves so we know where we can go, but where we can't go. But we had these massive bay trees, and also we had a willow dome. And those were two spaces that there were the kids' beyonds, where they could go into that space that was still within the boundaries, but beyond my eyesight, earshot, and everything. And that was their special place. So I think the Forest Woodland School offers that space where kids can go. That's beyond the adults in terms of an invitation to go in. And up in the woods, we had the fairy village, we have the pirate ship, and you know, they will ask permission to go. So I know where they are, but they've got that space, and we've built that relationship of trust, of boundaries, and what they can and can't do. And there's nobody better at policing than kids, than other kids policing each other. So yeah, when you have that camaraderie and you have that connection in that space, it's great. So the indoors, the outdoors, and that very special beyond for children in the early years, especially when they're the most watched people you'll ever meet. It's lovely to give them that freedom and space to move beyond. And then there is, for me, this was when we heard David Sabel talk in Scotland, and he talked about the nature design principles. It harked back to some work that I did years ago, and there's a universal communication and symbols in children's art, no matter where they are in the world. They will, up to a certain age, draw similar like schema, designs, patterns, and shapes. It's very hard to tell art from a child from Auckland in Scotland to one in Australia, from say North Brazil to Southern Ireland. When you look at children's art, there's a universal symbol in there. And I think that's why I really connected with David Sabel. And he's so right. There's a nature design principles in how children engage outdoors. And this was a real help for me. So he said that children are looking for special places, hunting and gathering, small worlds, animal allies, adventure, fantasy, maps and paths. And I've just found every one of those principles is spot on. We bring up to the woods, you bring your dinosaurs, you bring your trucks, and the space there is whatever they need their mini world to be, their animal allies to be, then you have your hunting and gathering, your bow and arrows, your maps and paths. And when it was the kids in the preschool, it was their birthday, I used to set up a map and little trails, and then I'd hide the birthday cake. So the kids would then have to go treasure hunting for the birthday cake, and then you'd have a party. So it's because they'd have their own special places, and they could they could take the party to there. But it's so lovely to look at a space and understand it from a design principle in a child's mind, especially in the early years. So if we bring up the tools, they'll develop their space. And I think that for myself, that was a wonderful connection into I know why we're doing it, but how are we going to do it? And I love that the nature pedagogy, the international nature pedagogy, it kind of settled your early years practice in it's very much an international dialogue that's happening. So it's not them and us. We probably all do it differently from, as I say, from North Sligo to South Donegal. We're all doing our practice slightly differently, but we're all under the umbrella of nature pedagogy. And it's a wonderful sharing, it's a wonderful connection, because when you're in a field or a hill or a woods on your own with kids, it's lovely to feel that you're connected in that way as it grows. So yeah, I can share with you a couple of projects that I have developed through the Sligo County Childcare Committee, through Healthy Sligo, and through the ATU that I've been working over the last couple of years. And these have all been focused for 0 to 3, 3 to 6, and 6 to 12. So that, yeah, the childminders that work with them, then the preschools, and then the after schools. So the activities and ideas and projects that I've developed, I didn't invent the wheel. These are a lot of things that come from Marina and Learning with Nature, a lot of projects and ideas from Naturama. And my favorite book, can I show it to you? It's the stick book. So it's this here has been in mud and trees and everything else. So you can tell my favorite books, they are the ones that are nearly at the end. I think it's just my love and will that keeps these books together, and the millions of ideas. So I'm going to send you a link of my favorite books to work with young kids at young ages, and how they've developed all the ideas even better than the originators and the authors. So what I'd like to take you through now is, so County Childcare Committee in Sligo contacted me maybe about 3 years ago with an idea that they had called Play in Nature. And it resonated because what started me on my path was nature play. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the small movie, and how beautifully they do outdoor play and education, Forest School style, over in the kind of Nordic Scandinavian countries. So Play in Nature, I was delighted. So the premise of a Play in Nature was to write a program for, say, 4 weeks for early year services in Sligo and Leitrim, and give them ideas of, to permission to open the door, go out and play and explore, and make it seasonal, make it safe, make it and involve risk within it, but in a challenging but less hazardous way. So we come up with all these brilliant ideas, and then we realized, well, the main barrier was the educator to getting the kids outdoors, because Like what I've learned is that adults stop functioning in art because we're nearly schooled out of it. You know, we're told, no, it has to look like this, that isn't good enough. And I think that's the same with play. We're told to grow up yeah. And so we step back from play. It's not our natural space that we feel comfortable anymore. So what we did with the early years educators, we brought them up to the woods, and we just started to play. And we explored the space. We got comfortable in the space. We started to expand what we did in the space. And it was, for me, it was great learning. I felt even more comfortable in the space, and so did the educators. And from that, we drew out this program. So, on which I'll send on to you. So it was a 4-week program, and I did a whole kind of catalogue of templates, and then a whole appendix of ideas and songs, and then not just develop ideas for the early years, but how they could be tailored to 0 to 3, and how they could be extended to 6 to 12-year-olds. So it's a whole smorgasbord of lots of ideas, but they can kind of bridge the different ages and stages, and for the educators or adults or parents or childminders to step in and be playful with them is rule number 1. So as with any, these are my go-tos, as with any early years setting that I go to or that come up to the woods with me, or if I develop a program, I always start with safety first. And I think that children, as I say, there's a dose of curiosity and caution in equal measure. So it's something that they want to feel in control of. So we do the risk, we do the boundaries, and we make it playful. We set up a space. We'll give them all material, usually something nice and bright, and the job is to think, how far can you go and stay safe? How far can you go? And we keep increasing that. So we'll introduce boundary games, and there's some brilliant ones out there that we did Orla in our training, you know, like Eagle Eye, and yeah, there's another one, but I can't remember. Was it Mouse? And but anyway, I have it all written down. So there's lots and lots of lovely games that we can play with the kids to increase how far they can go and how safe they can be, and then put their own voice and autonomy, how far they choose to go in the negotiation process. And with that becomes lovely things like, where's my tree? And from that space, identifying around it, it's like finding that guardian tree and honoring that guardian tree. It's looking for seasons and changes, what happens to that tree. It's looking for identification and learning, and then what the tree gives us. So as they explore the space and set out the boundaries, they're being introduced to all elements of nature. And then there's the idea of the scavenger hunt. So how do you really explore your space? We're looking up, below, the beside, and the above. And I find that once we first introduced the outdoor space and they've set their boundaries, we've been playful with that. They've expanded it a little bit. They've got to know the trees that are there to keep them safe. Then we find a special tree and the guardian tree. And there's some lovely songs I'm going to send to you. They were sent on by Marina Robb when we first got trained back in 2015 or 16. And I use a lot of those songs all the time. God love the kids. But I love singing. It's like you find your voice again, not only the kids, but I think the adults, you'll hear them starting to sing a few years later as they come into the woods. But yeah, so you have the scavenger hunt then. And I love how one little activity can be so, it can scaffold and progress into so many ideas. I've seen the scavenger hunt can become into transient art. You take it out, we identify what we found and what we know about it, and then we've all these nature items in front of us. Then all of a sudden you get your 4 sticks and you create a frame, and from that you put your nature items in and you create a picture or an idea or a song or whatever it is that you want it to be. And then you leave that and you come back and visit it, or that becomes a bug hotel because some creatures live in it. So it's never just one static thing when you're engaging in nature in so many different ways. And the learning is just tenfold for both the children and the adults. And then you've gathered all these leaves and flowers from your scavenger hunt, and then you introduce that lovely arts-based, nature-based approach. And that's something that I love to do. I've got much more creative over the last couple of years, and that's all because I'm lucky enough to work with kids outdoors, and I feel free from that educational system where, you know, my art really wasn't that good, but in the outdoors, it really doesn't matter. So like from the very simple action of the clay and your rolling pin, and then your leaf and your printing and your flower and your art making and whatever that becomes, to then the development of, and remember Lucy O'Hagan, Orla, were you there whenever we made the ancestral lamps? It was a way back at one of our gatherings.
Bridget's garden, I think.
It was bingo. Yeah, we were sitting there and I love the idea. This is a beautiful idea to do with the kids. And again, it's in the appendix. It's and it's something that I did with the adults first, and they really connected with it. So you've worked around your boundaries. You've found your special spots for sitting and reflecting, or your guardian tree. You're learning your identification, what's safe and what's not. You're scavenging, you're hunting, you're connecting in a landfulness way with your space. And then you're getting creative and arty with your clay and your leaves. And then it's lovely. I think there's the only one space that really offers that in this kind of like creative educational space is around a fire. That coming together, that central point, that elemental feeling of creating, making warm, cooking. And sometimes when you're on around the fire, that's all you have to do is be around the fire. But then you get to make the ancestral lamps. And this is my favorites, where you have your clay. You can get the gorgeous clay, and I'll send you the information, which is non-fiber, and it's air drying. And you make your little vessel, your little boat, your little lamp. And then you go foraging and you let it dry around the fire. And then you go foraging for your rushes, and you gather a lot of rushes and you bring them back. And then you just start to peel them like bananas from the base to the tip. And inside is a beautiful pith, like a material. And it becomes long and thin. If you get really good at peeling it, it becomes a very long, it's almost like a wick that you put in a candle. So you pour the oil into the little clay dish that you've made. You put your little wick that you've made from your rushes, and you dip it into your lamps, and then you double dip it, and then you light it. And that little lamp will stay lit for as long as you want it to be, as long as the wind doesn't blow it out. And it's a beautiful connection to foraging, to arts and crafts, to gathering of clay, and the coming together around the fire. As I was saying, so I love this book, this stick book. It's got loads of ideas of connecting kids together with kids, and adults and kids together. So lovely, like kind of ideas of warm-up games and introduction games, and ones that are pitched at a really young age to those 3-year-olds, where they can take the initiative, they have the voice, and they can be playful with the idea of whatever the game is. And again, my favorite one is this is not a stick, it's a pen. Or they're just wonderful ideas to come and connect in and develop and make your own. So couldn't recommend this enough. Then as the kids are outdoors and in nature, here's your Naturama. It's a whole way to like making up your cloud stories, to collecting your birds' feathers. And the kids, I've given this to the kids before, and they've liked the pictures, and they've pulled out their favorite pages, and then they've developed their own learning and outdoor journal from ideas from here. So it's lovely that they can take ideas, they can make their own little books, and then they take them into nature, and they gather, they forage, they remember, and they tell their own story through their books. So within the nature play, there's a lot of ideas that I absolutely love. And again, they're my go-to. So the first one, playing outdoors with the early years, is setting those boundaries, finding their space in a playful way, and letting them extend the boundaries a little bit. So they're still safe, but they're within that eye shot or the ear shot. And then it's about the connection to the mini worlds and our little animal allies. So we start to embody, we can play nature stretching games, we can play the guess who I am game. So one of the wonderful things that I've Scotland or just seem to be miles ahead in lots of educational programs and systems. So they're wonderful resource for anybody in the early years that's working in nature-based learning with kids. I think I can't remember what it's called, but I have it written down somewhere. And it's a whole a whole array of well thought out activities and information for the adult and lots of things for the kids. So there's little things like animal stickers, and then you can where the kids can pretend, who am I? You know, they come up with an idea. They look at their sticker, and their sticker's a hedgehog, and then they have to embody that animal and pretend to be the hedgehog, and other kids have to guess, and then they've got to go and inhabit, find a habitat for that animal and become that little hedgehog, and then they've got to think about the life cycle and how that's going to sustain them, and they can have a whole hedgehog family. Then you get really crafty with the arts, and you have your clay, and they make their hedgehog family. So the embodiment of their animal allies, I think, is really, really important. I think one of the best things, I haven't got it here with me, but there's loads of really, I don't know, for some reason, this has just gone boom in the book market. Loads and loads of books with the bird songs in them. And the I think there's no book that shop you couldn't go into now and find something like this. And then if you go into the the Royal Protection of Birds, I think whatever it's called, they sell, and actually they do it in Bridget's Garden. They sell those lovely little birds, the little toy birds, and you squeeze them and they make the songs. And that's actually two of the most popular things that my kids love to bring up into the woods. I think it's maybe as transitional object from the polytunnel up into the woods, because there's a big space. Maybe they need to feel minded, so they like to bring something soft or a toy from one space to the other, bring it with them on their journey, and either make a habitat for it or involve them in the play. And I'm forever running around the woods picking up dinosaurs and birds at the end of the day, or not, and then finding them about a week later. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend this first of all, bringing a playful item from maybe the indoors to the outdoors classroom, and even let them take it into the beyond classroom, and have trust that it will come back to you in some shape or form. The embodiment of the animals around them is a lovely way for kids to connect in that the space is more than just themselves in it, understanding that a tree is not just a habitat, it's a home, what a home and a habitat means. And that's something I'll discuss with you in a few minutes. So that game of who am I, that nature stretches, you know, you're an animal and you're stretching into their shape, finding your nature name. They're lovely, simple ways to connect into the space that you're there and who else lives there, and that we're just there to visit. Um, there's ideas of bringing loose parts up into the woods. This is one of the first things I ever did. I just got planks and logs and ropes, and it's as simple as that. And I used to bring them up to the woods every day until I caught myself on, and I just left them up in the woods. I used to get logs, and then I tied hammered ropes into the either side, so I'd have them on handles and carry them up and down. I just leave them up there now. So there's a lot of loose moving parts up in the woods where the kids will use to make an obstacle course or play a game like the ground's lava. How do you get from one side of the woods to the other without touching it? It can be lava, it can be a swamp, I don't know, with shark infested something, but it can be then items they can use for their shelter building. So I mean, we have cones and ropes, and I never know what it's going to be, but I always have my loose parts there for the kids to explore and make it whatever they want it to be. And lovely idea actually for when you've set your boundaries and you've done a bit of tree and plant identification. My favorite go-to game, whether we're indoors, outdoors, is you're only safe if you're touching. And yeah, and even around the house, actually, whenever my little lad has a birthday party, you know, if you want to get them to do something, you play a game, and it's wonderful. So you're only safe if you're touching a boundary tree. So they show that they know where it is. You're only safe if you are not touching the ground and they have to find a rock or a plant or a tree to climb up on. You're only safe if you're whatever it is, you know, and it's wonderful. And as they're foraging and moving around their space and learning their ID, and it's as important for them to learn, you know, what they can't touch as well. So like the lords and the ladies of the woods, they can't touch them. They're only poisonous if you consume them. But there's beautiful songs that are great for identification. So when we're in the woods and we're learning new space, I always love seeing a chestnut tree. And there's the Tony Chestnut Tree song. Do you remember that one, Orla? No, and it's so your body and you're touching your toes and your knee and your chest and your nut and your nose and your eyes, and you're going, Tony Chestnut knows I love you. Tony Chestnut knows I love you. Okay, because he told me so. So there's loads of wonderful songs to play and learn with the kids in the woods. And another one is the lords and ladies. So you've spotted a plant that you want them to be able to identify, be safe around. So we bring them over and go, good morning, lords and ladies. It's a glorious day. Hands in my pockets. And now I'm on my way. So they can identify what they can't touch and they know what to do. They put their hands in their pockets and they walk away. And we don't use it for art or foraging or anything. So yep, but what we do love to do is forage for tea. So what I usually do if I have the kids up in the woods, and especially if it's kind of a hot or a cold day, I'll bring a big flask of hot water and we'll forage for nettles or lemon balm or mint. And the kids, they love, especially the nettles, because they get to put the rubber gloves on. And so foraging and making tea together, and but it's always with Trish now, so I'll always do it with myself. So we just always do, if it's not nettle, like if it's lemon balm or mint, there's always that smell test. So we're just making sure what goes in is what's meant to go in. So foraging and making tea is such a lovely thing to do with the kids. And again, it gets them to explore what's around them. And then that consumption is lovely, that sharing, whether they like it or not. And I always think a big spoonful of honey makes anything go down well. So yeah, and we have some bees as well, so they've been learning a lot about them recently. So yeah, I love in the programs all about foraging and how to do it safely and very, very simply. And then looking at the different seasons and the animals and the change of the habitats. The program looks at migration, swallow migration. So there's 2 times in the year when you can do that, when they arrive down early summer and when they head off, well, maybe spring actually, when they arrive back at spring and then they head off at the end of the summer. There's a lovely activity to do with migration and swallows where you make your swallow out of clay and leaves, and the hazards of being a swallow through the strong winds or the sparrowhawk, or even just exhaustion and lack of food. So there's a wonderful game to play with the kids, the embodiment of the swallow, the big journey that little bird does through through from, say, South Africa to Ireland, and again, it's all in the appendix. I love your outdoors. You've got all that space to play. Then you make the habitat for the birds to be happy and safe in. Other ideas of I say a 4-week program would be the clouds, and it's all in the Naturama book. Cloud watching, that lovely permission just to lie back and look up and listen and just to be and make a story of the clouds, learn about the clouds and watch the rain moving very quickly towards you, especially if you're in Sligo. And then the life cycle, it comes in a lot within this program. Life cycle of tree, life cycle of a butterfly, or whatever it is. And what I find and what I'll say later on is that my favorite place is McHale's in Sligo. It's the sawmill. It's my happy place. I just drive into it. And I just love the smell of the wood that's been cut and the place. And oh, it is an absolute treasure box of a place, of bits of wood that can be anything that you want it to be. For a slice of a log that can turn into a tractor, if you put the big 4 wheels on either side of it and go to like I don't know, like what is it? A motorbike shop. I went to a repair shop and they had all these steering wheels. They give me loads of steering wheels, and we've made lots and lots of things out of logs that are motorized now. Well, imagination. So the life cycle of tree, whether you're gathering the seed, looking at the little shoot to grow up big, and then taking the kids to the sawmill at the very end and seeing that whole journey of a tree and what it becomes beyond its growth and its use for us. And then as I was saying, the stick is still the #1 play item for kids globally. So what can a stick be? A stick can be a magic wand. There's ideas on how to make it into a magic wand. It's a journey stick, from the very start of your day or the very start of your program with the kids. Let them find a very special stick and make it even more special, whether you're attaching a ribbon and wrapping it around. whatever colors they want, whatever way they want to do it with wool. And then as they journey along in that wool and that connection with the stick, you start to weave in the feathers that you find, the stones that you can, hopefully it'll fit to go in. Or whatever it is, the flowers and that you're foraging, the lichen from the trees, whatever the journey is, they can start to weave that into their journey stick. And it's a forever stick. It can something that they can keep up in the woods, something that they can stay in the school, or something that can go home with them. And it's a lovely take-home idea for parents and families on adventures up in the woods themselves.
Trisha, I'll just jump in and say my head's totally alight with all of these gorgeous activities and ideas and like ways they can be extended and brought through play and journeys in the woods. So thank you very much. Just going to give you a quick little time check. We have about 10 minutes left probably before we really need to move to
Yes, okay.
questions. So yeah, we're
I'm going to speed
very
up.
excited to hear more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Forla. Look, I honestly have no time. So there's loads of ideas about the guardian tree, how important it is to honor that tree, introduce it as the home and the habitat of all the creatures that are still there, and even finding that special nature tree at Christmas time, wrapping it with garlands of popcorn that you've made, putting the bird feeders on it, make your own Christmas decorations, honor a tree at Christmas time that feeds the animals over Christmas while we're all getting stuffed with turkey or tofu. And so there's loads and loads of ideas. Bug hotels, get a pallet, get a big pallet, put it up against a wall in a preschool. Preschools can be very limited in their space outdoors if you're not an outdoor preschool. Get a pallet, stick it against the walls, fill it with sticks and soil and leaves and moss, and make it into a lovely bug hotel. So if you don't have the space in your outdoor school for it to be everything that you want to be for the kids and increase the biodiversity, you need to then invite a lot of make habitats and invite the creatures in. So one of the programs that I'm going to talk so quickly now is an idea. It's a project. So the first year with the County Childcare Committee was Play in Nature, and that was about ideas and activities to bring the kids outdoors. We got more project based on our second year. So I developed a program that was all about the worms, the bees, the frogs, the birds, and the trees. And when settings were, indoor settings were very limited with our outdoor space, or even for outdoor settings, let's look at how we can support and develop habitats. So if we don't have the wildlife and the habitats there, let's invite them in. So we would make a wormery. There's information on how to charm the worms, make your own little mini wormery, and that itself is all the information for the kids to get dirty in the soil and want to explore. Make a bee motel for that solitary bee, make it out of bamboo shoots or out of hogweed stalks. Build a pond. And I know that a lot of people in earlier settings would be worried about this, but it can be a plant pot pond. It can be as small as you want it. And it's literally putting soil, sand, and stones in, and then just sourcing some good pondweed and putting it in. And I really believe if you build it, they will come. So if you get some good pondweed and you're in a swampy area, before you know it, there'll be frogs popping all around. And even if there isn't, there's an abundance of other creatures that need that water source, and will develop in that little pond that you've made. From bird feeders to a bird box. Again, the guardian tree, honor that tree. And the willow is the gift that keeps giving. So I'm going to talk about willow in a wee minute very quickly. So there's a gardening for biodiversity, and the Heritage in Ireland have these amazing books. There's the cover there. And oh my goodness, you can download them for free online. There's the link. I'll send you the information. It's a whole how-to guide. Make that early years learning in a creative way outdoors with the kids and support habitats. Program I'm running currently at the moment is A Year in Nature, and it honors our whole year. It looks at the 4 seasons, the 8 festivals, being the equinox, and it's the individual journey, it's the community, and it's the well-being of the whole space of where we are, where we live, how we live, and who we're, the connectivity with the world around you. There is one point in this that I absolutely love. There's a brilliant book, and it's the Unseen Forest by David Haskell. And in it, he talks about this concept that we're always looking to, how did he say it? To see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower. And what he's talking about is it's a kind of metaphor for the Tibetan mandala. So it is observing one space for a whole year. And I've been doing this with the preschools, and the kids love it. So you send them out into their space. And what David did is he walked kind of haphazardly in the woods, and he stopped because he found a rock that looked sittable on. So he sat down on that rock and he looked around, and he created a mandala. So it was about 1 meter wide. So it's a big circle, and you get the kids to haphazardly walk around their space. Find one, maybe put a little log and a little buddy bench beside it, get some rocks, and make whatever you've got, make a circle about 1 meter or 2 meter wide. And the only rules are that you can't walk into it, you can barely touch it, but you can explore through smell and sight and journaling. And the kids get to look at this space and reflect on nature for a whole year. What comes in, what goes out, what grows, what decomposes, what changes, what smells, what's going on in that one space. Is a lovely connection with kids in the early years, because they own that space and they manage that space from the perspective of an observer. And it's been one of the most lovely projects to do with the kids. And again, come that storytelling. And yeah, so I know I'm feeling rushed now, so I'm going to just see where we are. The willow is your best friend. It's definitely my best friend. There's so many things, from making 2 triangles, turn it into a star, weaving it into a circle, be it small, where you make lots of little circles and you bundle them together into a ball, and you fill that ball with like wool or moss, and you hang it up in the trees for the birds to then make their nests out of. Whether it is getting a bigger piece of willow and helping the kids weave it into a circle over and over again, so you then can start to weave into the willow around it, make it into a wreath for Christmas, put wool across it, make it into a dream catcher, make a paper lantern, make a bow and arrow, stick a bit of willow in the ground, and it wants to grow under the right conditions. So we've made loads of little domes and paths, and it's a living classroom out there. It's a living beyond space to give the kids to hide from us. So there is a new paper. Well, it's 2023 to Slim Pubble. So they're really trying their best to encourage outdoor settings. I was delighted to see it. When I read it, I felt a little bit tighter by the end of it, because, like, they've only got so much they can play with. The legislations and the regulations aren't really there yet at the moment. The insurance has improved, but still, we're still dealing with a lot of bureaucracy and, like, the fear factor with the kids, or for the adults working with kids. But it's really trying to give opportunities for more fresh air discovery, kids exploring and experimenting. So I'm glad to see that the paper's out there. We've got a long way, I think, a bit further to go with it. So I totally rushed that little bit. There was something else I wanted to say, but I think I've run out of time, Orla. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. Okay.
I think we might, I suppose, offer out the opportunity if anyone has any questions they want to pop in the chat. And depending on how we're doing there, we might have a little wiggle room of just a couple of minutes more, if that sounds okay to you, Trisha.
All the time you need, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, fantastic. So I see Mary Kate had popped in a question about hogweed and using that in crafting, about it being toxic to skin, or giant hogweed. So Kira very kindly put in a response there about the difference between the common hogweed and the giant hogweed.
Thank you.
And the Phorenicamarians, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation now, in the sap. So I suppose with that, would you have, picked and dried maybe some of the hogweed ahead of time, Trisha, or how do you work there?
Yeah, well, I definitely stay away from the giant hogweed. Well, hopefully we haven't run into that much of it up in Sligo anyway. But yeah, no, I wait till it's dried. I wait until it's literally on the ground on its way out, and then we'll lift it. And I've never had any problems with it at all. So yeah, so it's not fresh. And thank you for letting me clarify that. Yeah, it's at the end of its days, when it's dry and snaps, and then we collect it, and that's whenever we can turn it into the little a solitary bee motel.
Fantastic. Yuki is asking about sharing the link for the songs that work in parent toddler groups. So Yuki, Trisha very kindly sent us a lovely email earlier on with some resources. So we're going to actually put those up onto the new resource section of our website. So for anyone who is an IFSA member, on our member login section, we have a fantastic new resource bank that our Acorn has been working hard to build for you and to populate. So thanks to Trisha, we have her permission to share those resources there. So they will all be going up up on the hub. Thanks, Joan. I see you have a question. Thanks, Trisha. Amazing as always. Just could you say a word about supporting adults to enable this kind of work? It seems to me that it is so key in moving forward, especially in primary school for the younger kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did, because I think that a lot of adults, you know, I think I was years ago as well, they really stopped functioning outdoors, and there's they're not as comfortable outdoors as they are indoors, especially with kids if they're not feeling that kind of like trust or yeah, so they stop being playful. They don't have that curiosity and wonder anymore. So I suppose through just my limited experience with working with early years educators in Sligo is just like to go outside with them, to give them a toolbox and an experience. And even if it's a written 4-week program where and I'm going to send it on as a tool for yourselves to work with, if it's a slowly kind of like step outdoors and explore, it's a great way, I find anyway, just to you're talking about safety first, you're setting boundaries, and then all the magic happens within that, and then they start to expand and explore, and the adults go and grow with the kids. So it's I suppose it's keeping everybody in their comfort zone and then slowly stretching them out. But I have found, yes, that through the County Childcare Committee, we did have to step back a little bit and play in nature and really work with the adults before we started letting, you know, before they really felt comfortable to bring the kids outdoors. But it's been wonderful. And I think that those kind of games and ideas where they feel like they've got a tool belt when they go outdoors, it's not just, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know. And if they see kids playing, letting them support that free play.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. Thanks, Trisha. And I think, you know, like what you were kind of saying there earlier on as well, that, you know, getting the adults out into the woods and getting them, you know, back into their playful selves and probably reconnecting with those memories of their own childhood and their own experiences of play outdoors is such a powerful thing. And I know we've talked about that lots before.
It's
So
true.
I see Rory has a question as well regarding the mother tree, the grandmother tree. His experiences, he's found some kids of faith standing back from that interaction. Also kind of older siblings forbidding younger siblings from participating in those mother tree interactions. Would you have any ideas of how to navigate that?
Gosh, that's really interesting. I haven't personally come across that yet. I mean, I suppose there's the grandmother tree, or you call it a guardian tree, or you take it. I suppose maybe it's a different way to frame it. Then find a word that resonates with within the different beliefs or cultures, and just find the connection with whether it's the home tree then, and it's understanding that we're honoring this tree because it's taking care of so many creatures in the woods whenever we go home. You know, it's feeding them, it's sheltering them, it's you know, that whole ecosystem for them to survive in. So I don't know if I suppose if it happened to myself, I would definitely try and find a way that resonates with them in the connection of it being a home and a habitat, and finding what way to call it themselves, what they're comfortable with. What do you
Yeah,
think, Orla?
certainly. Yeah, absolutely. And I see Kira has left a comment here as well. In that situation, perhaps people can use whatever belief system they want. They could say a prayer inside if they want, and whatever they prefer. And I suppose like that idea of, you know, it being a point of a moment for pause, for reflection in whatever capacity the participant wants to come to that space in. And like you said, it's I suppose the idea of connectedness and care in nature, and you know, the grandmother tree being representation of care and stewardship of the woodland rather than necessarily maybe something that we necessarily are maybe like rather than a faith-based one. I suppose to try
Oh,
and maybe step that piece back for those
yeah.
children who have that concern.
And that's really because I'd never seen it as a prayer-based approach at all. Isn't that so interesting? I always just saw it as the mature figure in the woods that's minding all the creatures when we leave, and we're just saying thank you. I'd never, but I mean, a lot of kids and a lot of adults walk into the woods, big feelings, and it is a lovely space. And I always say, like I always just give it. Just even touching, we've got ours are three big major beech trees, and there's one I just find my hand just draws to. It's touching it, it's the feeling of it, it's the connection of something bigger and beyond us. But I'd never seen it before as a prayer-based or religious thing. I just seen it as a acknowledgement of life and beyond, protecting and yeah, and just connecting and with the thankfulness of being
Yeah.
there and sharing, coming in and sharing that space with it.
Always interesting to explore those multiple kind of perspectives and
Isn't it?
it's fantastic. I see a comment here from Joan. Thanks for the connections you made between the activities and the theories behind it and the sense of growth that connection engenders. And I think that's something that is just so important. Like I suppose you said we're talking earlier on about the role of the adult and in the three C's and curriculum, and I think that continues with us as adult learners, and framing our own kind of curriculum and extending our learning and looking for the information and the evidence to support what we know intrinsically is good work and important work and work of value. But for you to, I suppose, pull in those links with Sobel and so many other theorists is
Yeah.
really helpful.
I did. I found like Claire Warden at the start, you're kind of wondering why I'm going, oh, what am I doing? It feels right to be here, but how right is it? And I think that Claire, whenever we met her, she's so inspiring, isn't she, Orla? Like and her space, it was like, just breathe. This is all we have to do in this space is just breathe. And then it becomes what we want it to be, and or others more importantly. And then David Sabel, yes, it's like, why do we feel this connection? I suppose it was given at the why, like and then the how to. It's so yeah, like I'm more comfortable outdoors than I am indoors these days, though I do love my sofa and the telly. I really do. But yeah, so but to have that comfortableness is just I just want to share it with as many people as possible. And can I sneak this book in? It's Make Your Home a Nature Reserve. It's my favorite book at the moment, and it's one that we're running loads of projects with the kids. So you build in your pond, you learn about all the creatures below, beside, and above, and it's just I honestly I'm going to put together a big load of information, but this is the one that we're running a lot of projects on at the moment, and it's so lovely. And the author Donna Mullen, if you go on and check her out, she's amazing. Other people are just amazing, like all the things that they're doing, and yeah. So that's my recommendation today.
Amazing. So we've got a few more questions, so I'll pop through some of those. Lorraine's asking, do you run your preschool under the ECCE scheme, Trisha? Would like to avoid that route if at all possible. So I know your preschool is finished up now, but you ran as a registered childminder, isn't that right, Trisha?
I did indeed. So what I did, yes, so I did run the program through that system, but slightly different. So I was able to set up in my home as a childminder, and then I was an outings-based service. So I had my polytunnel in the woods, so I could take 5 kids every morning up to the woods, and then I had another 5 kids coming in every afternoon and took them up to the woods. So that's how I did it, and I had the 4 risk assessments. And my big sighing going on there, but I did that with the kids. So that's how I did it, and I visited some lovely settings that are outdoor based, and they're just amazing. There's a woman gosh, I can't remember her name. She's in Castlebar, and I snuck into her
Outdoor
session and went
explorers.
into hmm?
Outdoor explorers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I went there one Sunday, and I can't remember why, but we kind of went on a visit and she wasn't there, but we had a little look, and it wasn't a Sunday. But anyway, there are amazing settings out there, and I'd love to know more about how they're doing all the things. All I know is what I love to do with the kids when I'm outdoors. That's more my area of that age group.
And I think that's absolutely coming through this evening in absolute rooms where we're so clearly feeling that passion for nutrition. It's just going to run on now with another few questions to try to get through them. Jika is wondering, do you have any books you would recommend on risky play?
Do you know, I don't have any books on risky play, but I've done a lot of research on it, and I'll send you forward to that. I remember I've actually writing a paper one time on risky play, and you know what? I'm just so off my middle-aged
I
memory.
might I might
Huh?
jump in on that one then in that case. I really like the work of Ellen Sandsetter on risk in outdoor play in early years.
Yes.
And she talks about themes like play with heights, play with dangerous tools, play at great speeds, and so on. So you could look up Sandsetter, Ellen Sandsetter, and another book that I really like is a Sarah Knight one, which just happens to be by the desk here. So I'm not sure if that's showing backwards for you, but it's Risk and Adventure in Early Years Outdoor Play, Learning from Forest Schools.
Brilliant.
And that's one of the Sage series. It's a really nice, really accessible book, like maybe 120 pages-ish. So well worth a read.
Orla, did Ellen bring in another risk? Because I heard her say there's like heights and speed and elements and tools and getting lost and rough and tumble. But I'd heard there was another one brought out, and I thought it was Sansa. I thought she was saying that there is a new risky play called it's observation. It's watching other kids engage in risky play. Had you heard about that?
I hadn't, but actually that makes a lot of sense when you think about particularly
Yeah,
the kind of 0 to 3 cohort and that parallel play age.
that's it.
That's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm seeing as well, there's some mentions of other early years services, Little Twigs and Buncrana. Ethne, thank you very much. And Muddy Blutes and Claren Bridge in Galway. Thank you, Laura. Vicarious risk is what Joan has mentioned, that watching older children participating in risky play.
Thank you, Joan.
Joan, always a great one to find the source and correct our words with love.
Expand our learning.
Brilliant. So Trisha, Kira's asking here, loves your passion, wants to thank you for the amazing ideas, books, framework, and that nature pedagogy is nested in. It's such important work. Thank you for highlighting this pedagogy. It needs to be fundamentally integrated to the curriculum. April is asking, she wonders if it could be a symbol of a wisdom tree. So I suppose that idea of a grandmother tree or a guardian tree within the Forest School environment.
Yes, that's for me is what the guardian tree is all about. Just that, like the wisdom, the age, just the whole. And I think you just feel it when you're beside that tree.
Most definitely, most definitely. So some thanks as well from Annalise. Lucy is asking, any thoughts for working with younger ages, like 2-year-olds? Any golden nuggets?
We did a project recently with Kildare County Childcare Committee, funded by Creative Spaces down in Athy, and it was all the 0 to 3-year-olds. It was the childminders and the grandparents that came. Oh my God, it was magical, and we just focused on the dandelion. And because it was actually, it was funny because at week 3, all the dandelions were gone. It was like someone turned out the light and all the dandelions were gone. But yeah, it was so beautiful. It was simple, it was sound, and it was movement. And then we took the sound, we did that transition from indoor to outdoor with sound and movement. And then it was as simple as just finding one space or 2 spaces, and we brought light and water into it with the kids. And those elements, we just kept it very elemental. And then the green paint came out, and that was it. So I think my experiences with the younger ones is just it's just the elements, the light, the water, and a good dose of paint, and then it's just exploring the nature around that.
Yeah, and I suppose as well, it's probably important to think about, that age, the young toddler cohort, that I suppose what their engagement in an activity will look like is maybe quite different from that older child of 6 or 7 or 8 who will get really into complex play and scenarios and bringing in rules and creativity and imagination. A 2-year-old, you're possibly talking not quite verbal yet or very early stages verbal. So like you said, bringing in those sensory elements and having, I suppose, abundant space within your session to follow the interests of those little people. And of course that really high adult to child ratio, I suppose, at that age and stage. Isn't that right, Trisha?
Yeah, it is. And it is. And it's about that need to mark make and to sound make those early, all that communication. So that the verbal mightn't be there, but that doesn't matter a jot. There's so many different ways to communicate, and then for them to communicate in that space, with that space, never mind, forget the adult, yeah, with them. So it's about that, allowing that space and movement and sound.
Fantastic. We have 1 or 2 we might try and squeeze in there. So Ethne is wondering, Trisha, did you say you were approached by the childcare committee, or did you go to them? She's trying to make greater connections with the early years, in particular with practitioners, and supporting them embracing the outdoors.
Brilliant. Well, I just feel like I'm very, very, very lucky. I've got such a good relationship with the County Childcare Committee. And especially when I set up, I've knew them from a previous life, you see. So so I was never afraid just to knock the door and say, hi, this is what I'm doing. How would you advise some help? And they were really helpful at the start when I was trying to set up, and they guided me, and then they sat back and they watched me for quite a while. So I think it was very much a two-way thing where I went and asked for advice, and then I would always keep them in the loop about what I was doing. And then that joyful phone call came about 3 years ago about play in nature, and they reached out about a program. So I'd never be afraid to knock their door and set up a meeting. And they're always looking for, from what my experience has been, they're always looking for ways to increase outdoor play and knowledge and share. And if she's got all that experience, I think I'd say they'd nearly jump at the bit to support some training.
And so I might just pop in as a wee explainer for anyone who's less familiar. Each county, or I suppose area, say Dublin will have a county childcare committee, and their role and remit is supporting registered early years services and registered childminders and voluntary notified childminders working with children from that 0 to 12 age range. And they would, I suppose, help them from a very practical perspective in terms of compliance and funding and accessing the various government funding schemes, looking at regulation, but also looking at CPD, capacity building in a number of areas, and also administering grant funding for developing services and activities within services. So if you look up your local county area, for example, Leitrim CCC or Wexford CCC or Dunleary, Rathdown CCC, you'll find their information there. And like Trisha said, don't be afraid. Go and knock the door and ask, and have an introductory phone call, talk to the childcare development officer and introduce yourself and explain where you're coming from. And certainly I suppose my own background would have been working with county childcare committees after working directly in services in early years. And in Kilkenny we were very lucky to be able to run a number of events around outdoor play. Forest School up in Castlecomer Discovery Park, and nature-based, I suppose, CPDs for early years professionals. So there's options and opportunities there, so reach out for sure.
And if I can help in any way, Orla, like if anybody wants us to reach out to me, I'm happy to share the kind of programs that I run through the county childcare committees, be it training, be it CPD, be it even just programs that I run with childminders. I'm please just email me, and whatever I can do to help and share, I'd be delighted, because I just think we need to spread it more, and the feedback I always get is really positive, and sure, there's nothing better than that. And isn't it great to think that there'd be more people at young ages and stages, like, yeah. So please, if you want beyond this, please email like Sligo Woodland School if you want to talk. I'd love to.
Fantastic. I've just popped in a link to your website there, Trisha, so I know all your contacts and your email are through that as well. Kira has shared some recommendations as well for risky play, and rethinking weapon play in early childhood, how to encourage imagination, kindness and consent, by Broaden and Marks. And also some links to Sandsetter and Kinnair, their children's risky play from an evolutionary perspective, the anti-phobic effects of thrilling experiences. And I guess that's just something that, I mean, we could do another series of sessions on that element of risky play. It really is just something that it's a universal experience across play outdoors, along with all of those lovely elements you were talking about earlier from those common themes across play. So if there's any other last couple of burning questions or anything that you'd like to add, Trisha, to kind of round out the session, or anything that's burning for you?
No, I think there's a lot of things I want to say, but I better stop. It's 8:15. But I would, as I say, I'm going to send down a book list, the song list, the kind of like programs and projects that I've done. And if I can help in any way, please let me know, because I didn't invent the wheel. I was so lucky when I started. So many people helped me. So if anybody's on a journey and wants to reach out, please do.
I'm just thinking there, maybe we can, all those lovely resources, Trisha, we can email to everyone who signed up for this webinar, and we'll email them out to you so everyone gets them. Yeah.
Perfect, Carrie. That's a great idea. Yep.
Fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. So I guess all that's left to say is, Trisha, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your time, for your enthusiasm and your passion. That is just so, so clear. And we've all very much appreciated your time. And yeah, I suppose just to say to everyone as well, that the next session in our spring webinar series is coming up on the 10th of March. So that's with Barry Dillon, and we're talking about Forest School with teenagers. So looking at moving along the lifespan, working with those older teens, and seeing how we can get them engaged and involved in woodland spaces and in nature. So Trisha, thank you again. Thank you so much for all of your time.
Thank you, Orla. Thank you, Carrie. So
And
lovely to
thanks
see
to
your
everyone for coming
faces.
along.
Very faces. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Night night. Oh God, I could get stuck in the Zoom all night. Let me see.
Oh, stay here a second, Trisha. We'll say goodbye. One
Oh,
second.
okay, great.